Happy Monday, Matt. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing, Joe? Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Where were you for the last week?
I was in New York, New York City. Yeah, just I guess doing New York stuff. So
partying for the last week or so.
No, I mean
data partying.
Data partying. Yeah, I wish.
The best kind of partying.
I suppose it depends what kind of parties you're into. No, my kids wanted to go check out the city, so that's where I spent some time, and luckily got to meet up with quite a few data people, data friends, and just people that I've mainly met virtually, actually. So that was pretty cool to hang out and get acquainted. So yeah, anyway, but we just got back last night around midnight, so here I am. So
what was your kids' favorite part of the city? I mean, I know that you loved all the connections with people, but like, what did your kids like?
My kids, I think that they liked the there's like endless amounts of food there.
I love food as well, so I totally know where they're coming from.
It's good food there, and it's pretty inexpensive. So, I mean, you can also spend as much as you want. But
no, it's true though. Like that's the thing. Like most things in New York City are super expensive, but like the coffee is cheaper than in Zella. You can get good coffee for cheaper. You can get good food for cheaper than you can here, which is kind of shocking to
me. Yeah. So I'm not complaining about it. I think it's a lot of fun. We'll be actually going back there on. You and me will be speaking at Data Driven NYC on October 11th. So that's pretty cool. I think it's the from what I understand, still the reigning tech or data meetup in the city. So I guess we'll find out. But yeah, let's talk about that. So I mean, I think we were talking before the show about just how kind of local data scenes have changed since COVID. And I know that we've been running meetups for a while. I mean, I helped start the Salt Lake City Python meetup, like almost 10 years ago now, and did a few meetups even before that. So in person was sort of the default back then, but then we had this thing, the pandemic hit, and things changed a bit. So
indeed they did. I guess the question is, what were you seeing in terms of data scenes there, just from conversations with people? I talked to Salman Khan a couple months ago when I was there. He works at Helium 10 now, I think. But he was saying that, back in the day, just a few years ago, the data scene was really, really vibrant. And at least as of like June, it was kind of dead, frankly. Like there was just nothing going on. And more broadly, any kind of like tech scene, right? There was just no local scene whatsoever. And that used to be the point of being in New York City. I mean, it's expensive, it's dirty, it's loud, but you would have all these human connections and like lots and lots that you could just talk to people everywhere about almost any
that was the attraction to New York for the longest time, right? So you got the network of people, and I see the same thing in San Francisco and the Bay Area, where you just have network effects, and that's the only reason you would probably want to suffer through living in these places. But at the same time, it definitely feels like when COVID hit, we moved our meetups to virtual meetups, right? And so and that was a bit of an adjustment, I would say. The drop off, we're getting like probably in Salt Lake City, 50, 60 people showing up to our in-person events before for Utah Data Engineering Meetup. And I mean, so I think you started getting that many people at the start of COVID, but then it started dropping off. I think people just got kind of Zoom fatigue, so to speak, and decided to, do other things with their time. And that's what I've heard from other, meetup organizers in other cities too, where, what were once thriving meetups are now just sort of a shell of themselves. And so maybe it's time to rethink what is a meetup? I mean, I guess before COVID, why would you go to a meetup?
So this is a kind of paradoxical thing, which we were talking about even before COVID hit. And that is that everyone would go to these meetups principally to network and eat food, right? That was why you were there. And you were kind of interested in the talk, but the talk was more peripheral, and yet it took up most of the time. And even before COVID, we were talking about a concept of like maybe having almost a short lightning talk and then just spending all the time discussing the topic with the speaker rather than sitting in our chair silently listening, and I think even with technology tools, there's an opportunity to kind of rethink how we do things and to make it a more interactive process. So by all means, it should be. We have the tools, but we're just not really using them that way yet, I think.
We got the tools. And the thing is, like, a lot of people relied on like meetup.com for their booking. And I've always hated meetup.com.
Well, and I'll tell you, I frequently talk trash on the New York City startup scene, but I also compliment it. And that is that the stereotypical New York startup is like very good at business compared to a Bay Area startup, but not as good at tech. And Meetup is a classic example of that, right? They completely dominate the scene. Their tech is okay, right? Like they look kind of dated and old, but they're like really the place, or they used to be the place to go for meetups.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to remember too. I mean, Meetup.com sprang out of 9/11, right? So it was a way of building local communities in the New York area at the time, and what sort of spawned out of that was people using the app for a lot of different things. I mean, you got to remember that tech meetups are using Meetup.com. So are like meetup groups for
knitting
and real estate hustlers and crypto bros and yoga moms and everything else in between, right? It's just a different
baristas. I mean, anything
you want, right? Jogging groups. I mean, but so I had that notion way back in the day, and all the stores out here if anyone wants to go build it. But the tech is a different beast when it comes to meetups, because you have this added thing of a recruiter showing up, right? So I always thought it'd be interesting to have just a free meetup app that was geared towards tech oriented events, but you could optionally have it sponsored by companies via a job board or something similar like that. So,
which would be super smart, because let's be frank, that's one of the main reasons that people go to meetups, either to look for a job or to look for candidates for a job, right? I mean, that's what we find, right? And there are never enough people. Recently, there's been such a talent shortage, but everyone is looking there every month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we, I think we had to put some guardrails in place back in the day and in person, especially because some recruiters are super aggressive. It was pretty bad, actually. Like I had to personally boot some people out. Just saying, look, you're not welcome. You're kind of messing up the vibe. So, and the one thing that you don't want to do is mess up the vibe of a meetup. It's like the entire reason people go is because of the networking. It's because it's a community where they can feel safe and contribute and have good conversations. And the moment that's disturbed and you don't know, like, it's sort of that game Among Us where you're not sure like who the bad person is. And it's like, you're not sure who the recruiter is. And so you just end up not talking to anybody.
Yeah. It's the classic, like, it's a nerd party and there's always this tension with the recruiters, because everyone wants to be recruited, but no one wants to talk to recruiters unless they're being recruited.
Yeah.
For a job they actually want. So.
Actually getting some cool comments here so far. Cameron, he's in Nashville. He helps run a data engineering meetup there, so that's pretty cool. It's awesome to see more data engineering meetups happening too, by the way. So yeah, I hope you continue your success with your meetup. That's awesome. We've had quite a few people show up the first time. Keith, what's up, Keith? It's actually being on the show in a bit. Without strong substantial Q&A, there isn't much of a reason to meet in person or live online. Actually, it's a really good point. Let's dive into that for a bit. Like, what is it about strong substantial Q&A that lends itself to a good meetup?
I mean, without the interactivity, it might as well just be on YouTube, right? And you can watch the video and you can even comment and do some Q&A that way, although it might not be quite as vibrant. But if you can interactively discuss questions, then that makes all the difference.
For sure. And I think also, we saw this especially when COVID broke out, people were doing webinars.
Yeah.
I think webinars are like an anti-pattern because they're calling them meetups, right? So you'd be like, oh, come to our meetup. And it's a one-way medium, right? So you might be able to do Q&A, but the thing I like about meetups is you can interrupt the speaker and ask a question verbally and not just through chat. Kind of like people are doing right now.
The problem too with webinars is, to be perfectly frank, the quality is generally just so low. I mean, if I think about webinars, they almost have made me less likely to buy products when I've attended them in the past.
I agree.
I mean, I hate to say this, but like at one point, I sat through a Databricks webinar. This was way back, guys. So it's a while ago. It was probably like 2015. Like, this is just really boring and I don't really know what the point was. Whereas when I actually talked to people about Databricks and started using them, I'm like, this is kind of cool. All right.
Yeah. So okay. So back then, like, what prompted you to sign up for that webinar?
I was just like, my boss signed us up, right?
Okay.
So the data science team went and sat in the room, and it was a chance to like answer emails or hang out and relax during the day.
Right.
The webinar itself was
but it's absolutely true, though. I think there needs to be, and this is, I think, a chance for people to start rethinking the whole format of a meetup, because the Q&A is there. One thing we've been thinking about doing, and one thing we've been doing actually to some degree, is actually just, I call it the meetup sandwich. So it's the networking in the front or the top, then you have your presentation, and then you have your networking after. But I think people might just want two pieces of bread, so to speak, and just do the networking. And so one thing we've been doing is just having lunches, happy hours, that kind of stuff, and just basically, I think especially post pandemic, people just want to network. Like, they don't really want to go to a traditional meetup, or if they do, then that's cool too. But what I see most people energized by is just going and networking. And actually, Ganesh actually has a really good point here. He had a great data meetup in Bangalore. That's awesome. Great participation and tons of learning for everyone. No agenda, but he might have something more structured. And I think that's kind of the vibe we've been.
Well, I think part of rethinking meetups is just making the lecture shorter. So actually, back when I was teaching math, this was becoming a popular idea, and that is, instead of getting up and lecturing for an hour, you would lecture for 15 minutes, and then you would have the students do problems, walk around and help them. Call it the flipped classroom. And I think you could do the flipped meetup as well, which is 15 to 30 minutes of talk in the middle, or maybe 2 talks. But then most of it is just discussion, interactivity, because that's what's going to stick. I mean, we all think that we have a lot to say, but after about 15 to 20 minutes, people just start glazing over, especially with super technical material. If you're not doing it yourself, then it's not that interesting.
It might be more kind of workshop based stuff too.
Yeah,
I actually just read a really good book over the weekend, the Workshop Survival Guide. If anyone wants to do workshops, you should definitely check out this book. But it goes through basically, because you and I, we both teach at university, and I think the way you teach at a university is not how you should do a workshop. Actually, like break it up, maybe give a lecture at most 20 minutes, break it up with more hands-on lessons and so forth. So I'd be down to do more stuff like that, I think, because again, the meetup is sort of a weird conversation of a or it's a weird format where it's conversation, and then you have kind of the one-way talk, and it's sort of like a mini conference in a way. But I think it's a chance to mix it up and showcase people. And Pablo, he says, I go to meetups to have fun, learn, and connect with other data colleagues, and that's exactly it. I mean, connection, I think, is a key word here too, and learn something new. Bart, by the way, has a PSA, as if anyone's interested in doing a data meetup in Brussels, hit him up. So there's a lot of data folk in Belgium. Yeah, I think so too. We talked to actually a few people in Belgium. There's a good scene there.
And Andy Petrella, he's in Belgium, right?
Yeah, he's in Belgium. He's I did send him a package the other day, a signed book, and it was funny because it was like, I have no idea how to. When you write, you're addressed in the United States, it's one thing, right? But then you just write down whatever happens to be how it's written from the person, and anyway. But I guess there's a data scene there, but there's data scenes everywhere, right? And what I guess it kind of begs the question of what is a scene in 2022 versus say 2019.
And I think the reality is that it has yet to be defined. I think I stumbled on this article actually in The Economist talking about how, with all the technology changes, meaning people moving to webinars and more messaging and such during COVID, we would have expected a bigger economic boost, and we're not seeing that innovation has actually caused changes. And so the question is it just a question of time? Like, do we need another year to figure out these tools so that they actually make a difference? Or are we just going to revert to the old normal? Is there not a new normal? I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's kind of like return to office, and there's like return to meetup.
Right. It says that the old, so can we think of new ways to do things based on our experiences? And I would think from the negative parts of the experiences, we could think about what to enhance about remote working and remote meetups and everything else too.
I agree.
How do you hybridize? That's really what we want to do.
Actually, Rosanna, she has a really good point. Talks to meetups are hard because the levels are so widely varied.
That's absolutely
right. Yeah. And that's why I'm actually a fan of the networking events, where it sort of equalizes a lot of things. I'll give you a good example. Like, I went to this low key, kind of data happy hour down in Chelsea.
Yeah. And I think it was the same one I went, right? Ethan's event.
Shout out to Ethan Aaron. He put some great events. But it was cool. Just, you meet different people there. Everyone comes in it from a different angle. But the nice thing is you're all just kind of connected for whatever reason. And you just happen to be nerds wanting to get a beer or 10 or whatever. So
nerds like to party too. And I mean, it's, I think for individual contributors amongst us, it's easy to be skeptical of the value of human connections. But the reality is that human connections are the means of getting most work done. Otherwise, you're just kind of sitting in your basement working on something.
Well, yeah, I met somebody there who, New York can be, I think, a really isolating city as well.
Yeah.
And he's like, I go to these because I need to meet people. I'm like, this is a great place to do it because I think COVID really, if you're very introverted and lonely before, I can only imagine what that must have felt. I mean, I'm definitely not. I mean, I'm pretty introverted actually, but I'm also very social.
That's interesting. You consider yourself introverted?
To some degree. To some degree, I'm perfectly fine. I think I'm not uncomfortable with the fact that I could just spend 9 hours straight reading a book and not.
Yeah, totally get that.
Happens, right? So yeah, are you more introverted or extroverted?
Oh, I would definitely call myself an introvert, although I'm also a social introvert, right? But I have my limits. So there are two problems for me. The warm up is hard, like just getting started, and then I get worn out after a while. I'm like, okay, I need to go.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, but you know, and Cameron actually, you know, kind of thought it would be a good idea to do. I think happy hour type meetups it's a good way to reintroduce people, because in a lot of ways, what we saw happen too is the local communities had just I'm talking about technology and data communities specifically, but they sort of died out during COVID. I know that a lot of the people that used to regularly attend our events in person they're just not there anymore. They're off doing other stuff, and that's fine. That's how it goes. But at the same time, you know, I just think it's in kind of a new world, and you can't pretend the old one is going to come back.
Well, another phenomenon, I mean, tell me your experience with this, but we have to like go out and relearn a lot of social skills in some sense. And part of that is actual social skills, and part of it is just being used to being around big groups of people. Like it's cliche to say this by now, but it actually feels very disorienting to be at a bar with a bunch of people talking. It's like, what am I doing here? I don't know. I should run away.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's you. Yeah. Colleen, nerds like to party too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I mean, there is definitely a degree of that for sure. I mean, you know, techies are definitely, and I lump data people into that. We're notoriously, you know, introverted. It's sort of the old joke where, you know, how can you tell like a software engineer is an extrovert? Well, you know, he stares at your shoes instead of his. So, but you know, I think it was applied to actuaries or something. Anyway, but you know,
engineers at one point,
mathematicians,
mathematicians definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting though. But yeah, I mean, alterations, you know, and we've been to, you know, we'll talk about New York as sort of I think an example. I was just there. You spent a whole month there recently, so we're obviously experts on New York.
Of course,
yeah, definitely. But
I spent time in New Jersey, so I think that automatically disqualifies me.
Get out of here, leave. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting because people still go to their day jobs, whatever those are anymore. You know, maybe working from their home or working from whatever office is forcing them to come back in. Yeah, but what were your thoughts when you were there? I mean, I think we have a lot of the same mutual friends there. So
yeah, it was nice to see, you know, restaurants open again and to get together with friends and groups and such. The thing I noticed, maybe it's changed now, but there were cars on the road again, but there really wasn't traffic in the same way that there used to be, right? Like
really?
Manhattan felt fairly dead. Like there were cars around, but it's not the usual like constant honking. There was a lower level of constant honking that I was used to.
It's been a different area.
Maybe it's come back.
I think it's come back. Yeah, but that was a lot of cities. I mean, one of my favorite things during when COVID first started was the I would get on webcams and watch cities. So I you know, I look at a place like Tokyo where I'd spend some time, and you know, Shibuya Crossing, for example, is like one of the busiest intersections. I think it is the busiest intersection in the world. And to see nobody there, there was like a woman with like an umbrella standing there. That's about it. It was eerie for sure. And like, what, you know, going to webcams of like the Roman Coliseum and seeing like no tourists, and New York City is just dead. You know, I mean, it was like something straight out of like a, you know, kind of a dystopian sci-fi. Well, I mean, it kind of was a dystopian sci-fi.
It was
reality.
right.
It
happened, it wasn't permanent, fortunately, like the zombie virus.
So, yeah, exactly.
Receded eventually. So
yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, so fast forward to today, though. I mean, so the local, like, you know, NYC scenes, for example, did you interact with anybody there when you were there? Or?
I went to Ethan's meetup, and that was the main thing. And otherwise, it was just like meeting people for coffee and such. So yeah, I think that was the first episode of the kind of happy hour that he was putting together, and so that one was fun. I hope there were a lot more events like that in the near future. Yeah. How about you were talking about Data Driven NYC. Has that continued to run through the
I don't know.
pandemic, I mean, or did that stop?
I think maybe it was virtual. I don't know. I need to ask. So that's the event put on by Matt Turk, who's awesome VC, and I think he's even got a better meme game than he. So he's got some of the best memes I've seen. So yeah, but I think he said that they recently went back in person. So you know, so I'll be very curious to see what it's like, because I remember seeing a video of it, and there were like a waiting list, and there was like hundreds of people there back in the day, and
yeah,
you know, it was like an auditorium, and it was like a conference basically. But I have no idea what it's like anymore. I mean, the first in-person meetup I went to outside of Salt Lake City was in November of 2021 for the ML Ops happy hour, and that was pretty cool. So that was just down in the dog patch in San Francisco. What was really cool was it was the first time anyone had been out in like 2 years. So it was really awesome just hang out with like it was crazy. It was like a who's who of the the AI and ML world in the Bay Area. So you're drinking beers with the one of the people who wrote PyTorch and Metaflow and all these other technologies, and I thought it was a really cool magical moment because none of these people had seen each other for in person for a good long while. So
and there was a certain weirdness to it, right? But that one was kind of an underground meetup in the sense that it was like this invite only, almost secret thing.
Everybody but I think those are the best though, right?
Maybe so.
Yeah. So, but we did our book party in Salt Lake City, our meetup. What was it, July or something like that? I think we had like 50 plus people show up to that. That was pretty cool.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah. And we kept it very conversational, so it wasn't a one-way thing. We our meetups, when we speak, we tend to be very interactive with the crowd. I'm not actually a big fan of like kind of one-way presentations. I mean, at a certain point you kind of have to, like, I'll be speaking at a conference next month in Australia, and it's going to have to be like a one-way thing. So I think there's like, I don't know, 500 people there or something. So you can't individually interview people.
How long is your presentation though? What's your scheduled time slot?
40 minutes, something like that.
So that's a reasonably long talk.
Buckle up.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a fun one. But yeah, I mean, got invited to that out of the blue too. That was kind of crazy. It's you want to keynote this data engineering conference. A data engineering conference in Australia, by the way. If you haven't got your tickets, go get them so you can hear me give an awesome keynote on data engineering and so forth. But no, it's good. But that was interesting because I didn't even think that last time I heard about Australia, I thought they're still under lockdown, right? So it's because every country's different.
Yeah. But it feels like most of the countries have started to open everything up again. I mean, I know in a lot of Europe they've dropped most of the restrictions too. It's just kind of like recommended on public transit. It's kind of a big deal when that dropped in the United States, but I think it's happening.
Yeah, I think on the air train and JFK, it's like they still say on the audio like you have to wear a mask, but like nobody's wearing a mask.
No one does. It's not actually enforced. Yeah,
no, it's pretty funny. But it is what it is, and I think in a lot of cases, a lot of countries have just, their economies have suffered drastically from the lockdowns. I mean, they have to reopen in a big way, or they're. I mean, so like my dad lives in Southeast Asia. It's like the country he lives in. I mean, they've been shut down for 2 years, and a lot of it depends on tourism, their economy, and so a lot of these people haven't worked for like 2+ years, and that sucks.
Well, in many countries, they just didn't have the money for the government. We got some degree of government support in the United States, and if you lost your job, you'd have unemployment. In a lot of places, that just doesn't really exist, that safety net. So,
no, a lot of people move back to their, in with all their family members, and that's kind of how that went. So, but so it's interesting seeing these places open back up, and I'm not lumping in Australia with actually a pretty wealthy country, but but the cool thing is they're doing meetups in Bangalore now. I think it's awesome, and I'm just glad that these local communities are getting back together. As Marin points out here, it's where was that here? Social networks matter, and it's why we're all here. That's LinkedIn's become like an interesting social network for data people too.
Yeah, has it blown up since? I mean, was this just a continuous growth post COVID, or was there a big spike in your experience? I think you were on LinkedIn more than I was back in 2020.
I was, but I at the time, I mean, I had a decent connection count, but it wasn't anything like what I have now. And I think it's, in a lot of cases, the world grew a lot smaller. Grew a lot smaller. It shrunk. It grew a lot smaller. So things shrunk, and people's networks, I think, just consolidated. And I mean, the number of people that I talk to that I've met off of social media is insane. On a daily basis, I don't think I would have had the same opportunities if the pandemic hadn't happened, or if some similar motivating event hadn't happened, where people sort of came together into whatever we have right now. I mean, I look in the comments list here on LinkedIn, and it's kind of interesting, just the number of people I see here, and I've met maybe a handful out of people, 39 comments and roughly 20 people or something like that. So I think that's interesting. I don't know, what was your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like people consolidated around these online communities, and the thing I'd add now is that I feel like a lot of us, including me to some extent, are sort of sitting around waiting for the existing meetups to come back. And I think what makes sense right now is to just go out and proactively, if you see a gap, if you're like, well, this meetup didn't come back, talk to the organizers, see what they want to do. And if nothing is happening, then just go start your own meetup.
That's just it. I mean, you don't need permission for this stuff, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you never did before, but
no, you didn't. But it was always, you'd have the top dog, right, in your community. And like, well, I don't want to take on, I don't want to go head to head against UDIM or whichever meetup. So
you don't want to go head to head against my meetup.
That's right. That's right. Joe will crush in CrossFit. No, but I mean,
or DJing, one of the two.
That's right. But in reality, there are these opportunities that you may identify just a type of meetups that didn't exist before, the happy hour, or just a different topic that people weren't talking about before, and just go kick it off. Yeah,
that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, like I said, if you want to get involved in a local scene too, I think now's the time to do it, right?
Yep.
I mean, if you've always wanted it, or if you want to reconnect with people. I mean, it's kind of a weird comment to say, but I would say go out and just make it happen.
Exactly.
So, and speaking of making these happen, we have actually Chris Tabb joining us. He kind of mentioned in the comments yesterday that he was going to maybe make a cameo appearance.
When we have no guest, we let Chris crash.
I thought I was like, gate crashing, but you wanted me here, didn't you? Really?
Yeah. It's basically an invitation. Welcome.
Yeah, what's up, Chris? So, I mean, so walk us through this. I mean, you've been going to a lot of conferences. You're kind of the international, man of mystery when it comes to data. You're everywhere. Like, what are you seeing as you travel around the globe? With I guess local data communities, and also I would say just data communities that have been brought together for conferences and stuff like that. A lot of questions there.
Well, I didn't hear most of them because actually you were still playing on LinkedIn Live on the background, so I didn't know what was going on actually.
So it's like a kung fu movie or something.
Yeah. I thought I was giving a feedback loop to everyone out there. I was panicking. So you might have to repeat the questions, but before you do, I'm just surprised that you're also an introvert like myself, Joe. And I had you already in that camp anyway. But
I know, it's pretty evident.
But actually, I think you're lying, Joe. I think you're Irish bit extra. But anyway, we can argue about that.
I'm kind of ambidextrous in either way. Like it's interesting because I used to DJ a lot, in clubs, and what I found interesting about that is that's actually a really introverted job. You would think that that's a job for an extrovert. DJing is very much an introvert's game because you can hide behind the DJ booth, and if you watch DJs, actually what's a really funny thing is when you watch DJs go to clubs, they rarely dance.
You can't do both though. You can't do both. It's like having the skills of dancing and being a DJ. The people who can't dance go DJ. So
exactly.
That's why I didn't DJ. I was the best dancer. That's why.
It's funny too, because even teaching is something that introverts can do quite well, and it's because, in some sense, when they're in charge of the room, it's like acting or something instead of just interacting with a room full of people randomly, right? You have control of the situation. Sorry, the dog is acting up here, but you have control of the situation. So it's a little more like DJing maybe when you're teaching.
Yeah, it kind of is in a way, but yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And the question I'd asked you, Chris, was back in the day. Sorry, my dog has this tendency to she hits the door spring to notify that she wants to leave the room.
That's clever.
Pretty smart dog. Otherwise she'll jump up and
open the door herself.
She does it. Yeah, it's a pretty smart dog. But yeah, I mean, so you've been globetrotting a lot, and the question was, what have you seen? Are there any similarities or differences to the pre-COVID world to today?
Yeah, I mean, my life is as it is now is because of that. So I got stuck a few places and then had nowhere. Actually, I was trying to get to Israel, I think, and it was just impossible to get there. So I get stuck one place, and then 7-8 weeks later, I realised that I've still been able to do my job, but living out of a suitcase probably could have done with better washing facilities during the journey. But you didn't need everything. You needed the laptop, you needed a good Wi-Fi connection, you needed access to people, and during that period, I think, as you said, I did miss that sort of like talking to people, bouncing ideas of people, giving my views and stuff, and that's what I missed when COVID happened, and that's why I became much more active on LinkedIn, and I expressed my views, and I've probably expressed them more now than I have ever before. But it's you need that combined like meetup as well as that social media. The fact that we've met 3 times now in the past year, I've probably seen you more than I have my family. So,
we are your family now. So.
Well, yeah, it's a data family. But it's just being able to do a post, say I'm visiting New York, and have 3 or 4 people, someone you've never actually met before. So, like for example, Joe recommended we catch up. All right, Joe recommends it. He doesn't want to get me killed, so he must be the right person. So, and I've survived, and so it was, thank you. And it was good to meet up Lauren and Ethan, not together at the same time. But one day I'll make your the meetup I didn't get invited to, the one they did in London where everyone was there. So I couldn't make it anyway. I was busy, but just saying.
I didn't want to go to your party anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the best one because I wasn't there. But yeah, I think you have to have. Doing these meetups. I've been doing a few, calling it the piecing together the modern data stack, which will have different levels of them. Some, I think, having that panel, the discussion, and getting feedback is what makes them much more interesting. Having that monologue, I hate doing monologue ones, and this is why I love doing chatting to you. It's always a conversation, not like we're definitely not pre-scripted. So it's what's on our minds, and you only get that, or the crowd that's out there. You don't get that experience because you're commenting. If you're in a room now, everyone have their opportunity to get their points across, or ask to go into more detail, which we can't do that in these sessions. So I think I'm going to be doing one in London soon. So similar to Ethan's, just a raw spit and sawdust East End pub style one.
Ooh.
So that'll probably be in September sometime, because I'm coming back to Lisbon from then. So I'll probably do another one over here. Hopefully I'll have more people turn up. This one wasn't quite as good.
Wait, turn up where, in Lisbon or London?
Oh no, London have loads of people turn up. That's my streets, obviously everyone will turn up there, especially East End. But no, we did one in Prague. We had about 150 people turn up.
Oh wow.
And that went on till 3 a.m. So I heard. Obviously, I'd left way before then.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And we did one in Lisbon recently, and I think I chose the wrong day. It was the day after a bank holiday here, and probably one of the hottest weeks where everyone's on holiday. So yeah, there you go. We had lots of extra pizza and beer though, and met some good people, but it just wasn't the same sort of turnout. But I'll be back here again. I'm moving here from October.
Here is where?
Lisbon in Portugal.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Nice. We now have an excuse to visit you. Come to Lisbon.
Yeah, it's actually new. I've been doing the research. Direct flights to Newark to here, so you've got direct flights. So yeah, it was one of the criteria I had, because I, had to go over there to New York every now and then.
Is there any skiing in Portugal?
No, that's why everyone asks their first question. They said, "Why are you moving there? There's no snow there, Chris." But it's you still get to Geneva quite quick. And I'm doing the seeds though. I'm working in Colorado to catch up with you guys in Salt Lake City while based in Idaho Springs, because there might be some skiing around there.
Idaho Springs.
So yeah, watch out. February and March. I'll be.
We need to restore the Great Salt Lake so we'll have more lake effect snow, right? Like that's been our problem lately. The lake is so low that we don't get as much snow as we used to get. So,
oh, okay. Well,
yeah. We'll let you know.
Yeah, wherever the snow is and some data nerds, I'll be there.
At the rate things are going, it'll probably be in Nebraska or some place like that soon. But that's interesting. So, I mean, what are some of the differences you've seen with data? I guess we'll call them data scenes or data communities, whatever, throughout Europe.
So, what I used to have, before COVID, I didn't really do too many, but whenever they were more of these sponsored events. So it was very much a vendor-led sort of meetup. I haven't seen. I mean, now I think maybe because I'm all in the community, I didn't see it before. I'm seeing a lot of the individuals doing their meetups, and Ethan. I think there's Lauren and other ones, doing individual, and you guys as well, and Ben as well. So all those, I didn't get visibility of them, so I haven't seen as many of them set up. I think there's stuff going up in Germany, but I'm seeing more activity, but maybe that's because I'm more plugged in. So
where in Germany, like Berlin or other cities?
Berlin seems to be the main hub over there.
We'll have to talk to our friends over there. So the funny history is that we were introduced as business partners by friends of ours who live in Berlin now. So
yeah.
Oh, it's their fault. Do you still blame them?
Fuck yeah. Scheisskopfs. So yeah, it's I think it's kind of it's interesting in the States too. I mean, we see something similar. I mean, I did an event a few weeks ago in Denver, of all places, actually a book signing event put on our friends over at Matillion. Shout out to Chad Zanka for putting that on. He's forever indebted to him. He's awesome. But I thought that was really cool because we got like 50 plus people show up to that too. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, and people that I'd never met were like, yeah, we listen to your podcast all the time, and got your book and you sign it, and I thought that was pretty awesome in the sense that these are people that I don't think we would have been doing podcasting if it weren't for the pandemic. I guess it was just one of those things where we were kind of bored and wanted something to do, and the Monday morning data chat really spawned out of Matt and I. If you listen to our conversations, these are just conversations that we just have.
Yeah. And we started super lo-fi, right? I mean, I was even in Oregon at the time, like at Grants Pass.
Yeah, like on your phone or something.
Yeah, I was on my laptop with terrible Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. And I'll give a shout out to these communities that Rosanna mentions too. I mean, it was cool seeing MLOps community, Data Talks clubs spin up around the start of the pandemic. Demetrios, it's a super good friend of mine, and it was cool seeing him back when he was just getting started. Same with Data Talks Club, and that I think I got a message to join that when it was like 300-400 people or something, and now it's obviously the size of a mid-sized town, so it's kind of cool. So,
and she also mentions Frankfurt and Munich as places with good meetups. So Andreas Kretz is in Munich, right, or near Munich,
something like that. Yeah, is that in Bavaria?
I think, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I once spent the night in a train station in Frankfurt waiting for a train. It was super sketchy. So.
Sketchy? What was the worst thing that happened to you in Germany?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you could get knifed or something.
It's not like here, though, right? Or I mean, the U.S. I mean,
it felt vaguely like New York City.
Okay.
Well, on my Friday night, I went out axe throwing with alcohol, as you do. So there's
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like pretending zombies or tic-tac-toe. So I now know if there is a zombie apocalypse, I'll be all right.
That's fun. I'll have to take you out to my cabin sometimes. We can drink beer and do axe throwing out there too. But
I don't think it's the best combination. But I mean, talking about there's something that I'm trying to put on for this season. I think it's pretty much going to be planned for January, mid-January now. Is skiers in data. I think people combining or like-minded people meeting out and doing an activity like be it drinking, be it skiing, some healthy stuff as well, albeit both. Having that ability to go and chat to peers, chat to other people doing this. The vendors are getting a lot of bashing at the moment because of what they're doing. Speak to other clients. Actually speak to independents that actually see it happen and. Get them drunk. They're more likely to give you the real story.
Well, let me ask you this though: if you're a vendor, I mean, this has always been sort of the tension between a kind of a locally grown community and then vendors, right? I mean, what's your take on this? What's the balance for a vendor either participating in these events or you as an organizer letting vendors in?
Yeah, and it's a combination. I'm going to be a hypocrite if I didn't say it because we do events with vendors. We normally do the events with vendors that all complement each other, so that all add something to the conversation. So, and there's no overlap between them as well, because you don't want to have two vendors there. And we're more, our view is about simplification. So,
especially an excellent event, yeah.
Well, no, that wasn't
with beer.
We haven't done that one yet. Well, get both get Databricks and Snowflake together at an axe throwing event. Yeah,
heard it here first. We're planning.
Heard it first, yeah, and then get Firebolt to do some other supporting of it as well. And that'd be a really interesting bash, that one. So I think it's that balance. I think going to those independent ones, we're just chatting to the people on the streets. The ones actually doing the job, and the engineers. Yeah, it's good to get some technical tips of what's going on. I think the crowds maybe you're going to get with they're going to have that more C-level, or maybe that different. They may be at different other events that are led. They want to go there and chat to a vendor, so maybe they've had that chat. They want to verify something. So I think it's different events for different purposes. If you want to get plugged into a community that you can bounce ideas off at a technical level. Maybe they want to go and validate something and go to an event that is one of the vendors that's been brought up a few times. Okay, let's go have a look at that. Let's see how it works complementary with other pieces of the puzzle. I think that, the modern data stack is, Matt, your comments on the thing the other day that I did, it's getting a bad press, and it's not. Don't blame the tools. Blame how you've built your shelves. If you see my DIY, it's absolutely rubbish. So it wasn't the tools I had that made the shelf bad. It was the fact I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So
yeah. Joe used this analogy, right? It's like blaming the car for drunk driving. It's like, okay, you had 5 beers and you went axe throwing and then you crashed your car. That's not the car's fault.
I'm not driving today anyway.
On the mean streets.
Technically, it's a bank holiday Monday here. This is why I've got time to go on the show. Normally, I've got meetings at this time.
Oh, that's funny. I want to give a shout out real quick to Mariah. What's up? She's the boss of the Utah data meetup scene, or I would say the meetup scene in general. So she runs a Forge there, and it's a collection of meetups there. So shout out.
And she's written about how the meetup scene has kind of died too, and how we're trying to resurrect it. So we can have a conversation about that sometime soon.
But I really think it's going to come back to, I'm pretty convinced that the old ways of doing meetups are dead for now, and it's not to say it won't come back. What gives me context is like when I've seen club scenes in other cities, including New York City, that used to have a very thriving club scene, and back in the I would say the mid 2000s, it sort of died off. I think it kind of died in a lot of places actually, and then now that scene is bigger than ever. I was just out on Saturday night there, and I was like, holy crap, there's like 20 different things going on. It was nuts. It all starts, I think, with getting things back to kind of grassroots movement and rebuilding, and I think it's going to have to happen in a lot of local communities.
We just need to rebrand it, remarket it, give it a new buzzword, put some sprinkle on it. It's done. All right. So I've just actually sorted out making architecture cool as well. So I think it was my post I did just before this show was about observability. It's a new buzzword that's come out that's made audit, logging, and monitoring for data with a cooler name. So I'm in Portugal at the moment. So Portugal is the land of the navigators. So I'm thinking, cool, architects are there to guide people in the right path to go and get to their end goal. Navigators do that. Now they've got their observability. The navigators can use that. So now I'm no longer a recovering data architect. I am now a data platform navigator. So I will plot your course across the oceans to get you to where you need to get your data value.
Well, and you're flying through the clouds, right? You're navigating in the plane. It seems like
obviously this is a sky ship. It's right. one of these top boys. Obviously, eco-friendly. It doesn't create any emissions at all because it's all coded in C as well, which is another thing I've seen as well, because that is that article. Yeah. So I've coded it all from scratch in C. So to make sure
reference was C is supposed to be the most environmentally friendly language.
Python C because of efficiency
creates the most. Python creates the most emissions. Therefore, it's bad for the environment. But then Laszlo actually called it out and said, if you actually look at the study, that's I think you're reading it wrong.
Yeah, I hadn't met him until I obviously connected him afterwards. But I think my view is only costs you 40 million more coffees. How much more energy for lighting and 5 years or 100 years in your project to code it to go and do it and see, when you could build up layers that only cool the bit that's closest to the hardware when needed, and then it's going to be efficient, isn't it, overall?
Let's get rid of all abstraction to save energy. That's what we'll do.
Yeah. Well, the polar bears will be happy at least anyway.
What I find interesting though is, I'm looking at the people who's commenting here, and it feels like this is almost somewhat of a replacement for the meetups that we used to have. Everyone in the chat here, we're just friends, and these are regular people on the show comment. And actually, Mariah has a really good point here. She thinks titles of meetup matter. Purposes matter. Purpose matters. People want to hang out. not necessarily hear a sales pitch. The other thing that people don't care as much about at meetups, hiring and recruiting. They come for social, people, content. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's even when with my meetups, I always had to make sure. I've had quite a few vendors maybe have their DevRel person or their CTO speak at them, but I had the line where it's like, if you're gonna do it, make it turn into a sales pitch. You're not welcome back, and I might actually cut you off. And so it's definitely a fine line, but I feel like now I'm probably more of the inclined just to do happy hours or lunches, frankly, or breakfasts. Just keep it at that, and maybe you just have presentations be virtual because it's more convenient for people. Because again, the times that you have presentations for a lot of meetups, it's smack dab in the middle of rush hour traffic. Like, do you think people?
Yeah.
When we've done the 2 meetups in Lehigh, for example, we live in Salt Lake, and Lehigh basically is basically a foreign country as far as we're concerned. Because
it's tough getting down there for meetup. I mean, to be perfectly honest, thanks Mariah for running all those meetups, but like it's not easy. Traffic is always a nightmare heading down there.
Yeah, and I think she's seeing the same thing where it's maybe the meetup itself, we hold it online, but then it's complemented by just in person. Kind of off hours things too, where if you can get to them, you can get to them, right? But it's not like some sort of an obligation. I feel like there's a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to meetups too, in terms of if you're an organizer, you have to get food for people, you have to get drinks, and that sometimes has to come down to sponsors. Okay, otherwise we're footing the bill. We foot the bill last month for it.
Which it was a book launch.
It's a book launch, fine, right? But it's expensive. I mean, you're talking a few $100 per thing, and it's and at the end of the day, because of how meetup math works, meetup math is like number of RSVPs times a percentage show rate. It's like, cool. Now we're stuck with how many pizzas?
Yeah, tell me about it. That's what happened. That's what happened in Lisbon. We gave them out. We were giving them out on the way.
Did they eat pizza in Lisbon? I guess.
Well, they did. It was very nice pizza, but just had far too much of it.
Yeah.
I think something you just touched on there is, and something that I've found is that traveling around, going different places, there's now probably someone in each location that I know from a data connection that I can meet up with, and they may have something going on. So I think there is something of having a directory of these things. So saying, okay, look, there's all these things going around, and different, the cadence of them, when they do them, who's the main contact, who to follow for them. So if you ever did go to another city, you think, well, okay, let's go see who the cool data dudes are in that location, and let's have a hookup.
Well, and that should be meetup.com, but I'm seeing less and less people using meetup.com. Yeah, I mean, for one, meetup.com is an absolute dumpster fire of a platform. And I think when in person sort of went away, I saw a lot of events go off that. They went to Eventbrite, but I'll show you an interesting app that I use to find out kind of what's going on with various places for music, right? Resident Advisor is the app.
Of course, yeah.
You know that one, yeah. So course, I mean, everyone knows Resident Advisor, but there's, what you're talking about is kind of something similar to that.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head there of how we make it cool. So we put it on Resident Advisor. right, we actually just put some music on there that's related to it. Look, we're playing soul house, a bit of this, a bit of ambient data stuff. We're doing taking on a journey of music via data and mapping it to modern architecture. We put a bit of a spin on it, and people can know about what music we used to listen to when we didn't have cloud. And then, and like what vinyl really looks like and stuff like that. So we're teaching, giving something back. You're making techno cool again, maybe, as well as making meetups cool. And I'm going to be more likely to want to host them. So
interesting. Well, I mean, actually, Rosanna brings up a good point here about finding a space for your event too. It's not what it used to be. Like a lot of offices are shut down, right? Like we used to hold ours at overstock.com, and last time I checked, they might just be getting back into it. I know that Kelsey Hightower is giving a talk pretty soon at the Google meetup, but I mean, that used to be our mainstay, and Recursion in Salt Lake City used to be our other, but that was shut down. Like you couldn't have an event there. So that's part of the reason that we defaulted to having happy hours and, lunches, because, they're open. So a lot of offices still have COVID restrictions. I mean, I was at the Google office a few days ago, and it was like, you still had to show a vaccination to get in, which I thought was interesting. So, but
lucky you're not an anti-vaxxer.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I did my thing and got in, but I thought it was interesting because I don't see anyone else asking for that right now. So, whereas in San Francisco several months ago when I was there for the meetup, it was like, every establishment asked for a Vax card. And I felt really bad for this family. Well, sort of, not really, but there's a family in front of me trying to get into a restaurant, and like they didn't have their Vax cards with them. And they're like, yeah, we didn't ever do that. I'm like, did you bother checking in the policies in San Francisco before you showed up here? Because like you're not going to go anywhere. I don't know where you're going to go. It sucks.
It was just
for kids.
It was in I was in Switzerland for January, February, most of April and March as well, actually. And the same thing there at the beginning of it, you weren't allowed in anywhere unless you had the booster as well. So, and you couldn't go. So if you didn't, you couldn't get food. You couldn't go to a restaurant. I don't know how you were able to even go into a shop to buy anything. I think the baguette place is the only place, but you had to have your mask firmly on right to get in. That was
interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all changed now.
No, it's all changed, but everything's opening back up. But I think that the certainty over whether or not you can secure a space is still up in the air. Because, like, I mean, back in the day, businesses were clamoring to have to host your meetup. Now it's a different story. Like, you don't even know who to call.
Yeah. Well, and even if they're semi-open, it's just much harder to organize people to get the space because they're not in the office all the time.
Yeah,
it's just less enthusiasm. Basically, it makes it much harder. That's
why I agree with what Mariah's doing. I mean, I think she's got a good model, and like, you know, we basically collaborate on a lot of our meetups now, and it's going to be hybrid. So
the resident advisor people, they're going to know these venues that are going to be nightclubs that aren't used during the day. Okay, so they're going to be plugged in to actually knowing some bar areas that aren't actually utilised at that time. That now we're combining their network, their platform. We've made data cool again, and we've got a venue for it. It's all sold.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst idea I've ever heard. Have you ever actually been at a club during the day?
Yeah, they smell bad.
It's terrible.
Like CBGB back in the day. Did you ever go to CBGB?
I never went there. No.
But apparently, once the lights go on, you just want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Everyone just scurries out.
Pretty rank.
Okay. The good room. Okay, well, let's find a flow. Okay, we're on to something. I think a bit more research. I think we might better find a medium sort of venue that's open in the evening, but not a sweatbox.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yes, I mean, these are the constraints we have to deal with now. It's just, I think this attitudes of people have changed. Attendees have changed, and you just got to adapt to it. What I see happening, with some people is they kind of want to do the old model, and I don't know how that's going to work really. And so we'll see. Yeah,
I mean, going to both of the big events in Vegas this year. Well, two of the big Beyond for ThoughtSpot and the Snowflake Summit as well. That they were, well, for me, I was going in a different lens, but it was a chance to meet up with so many people again. That they're all in the same place at the same time, which you normally wouldn't get that. Trying to find time, different time zones that you can have a catch up, and just bumping into at a bar or hotel corridor. Couldn't escape anyone over there. You just meet people because they're all there at the same time. But I mean, there's an investment to those as well. So you got to look at, what you're going to gain from that. And again, the Snowflake Summit was very busy with many vendors. So to help navigate that, you need an independent to help you through that.
Right. Maybe somebody like Chris. I was going to go down to that, but my flight got canceled. So
I know. I'm glad you brought it up before I mentioned it. I know we were missed. You were very missed.
Thank you. Yeah, but my approach to conferences too, I did this at reInvent. I heard reInvent was basically all vendors and very few customers. And so I didn't even get a reInvent ticket. I just hung out, kind of in the periphery and people want to escape the conference hall after day 2 of being there. And so I just used it to my advantage and just, hung out with a lot of friends I hadn't seen in a long time. And, didn't have to spend the, $2,000 or whatever on a conference ticket. So that's the one way to do it too. Thankfully for me, Las Vegas, where that was held, and where a lot of conferences are held, that's like less than an hour flight from Salt Lake. So, I mean, and tickets are pretty cheap.
We had to go to both because of the awards we won. It's terrible. So
the awards you won, and then I guess I heard you dropped one too. So
yeah, and everyone recognized me as the guy that broke the award. So
yeah.
Did you super glue it back together?
No, it did fix. It actually just stuck back together. It was okay, but
okay, all right.
The story was, so I didn't realize, I didn't read the email properly. I had a seat right at the front to where all the award winners were to go and pick it up, but I was sat in the middle of the crowd thinking, I don't know where to sit. Okay, I'll be ushered into here. And then when I did come up, they didn't think I was, when we won, they didn't think I was there. So I went, oh, he's not here. I went, no, I'm here. treading over everyone's feet, running up, and then the camera crew are thinking, "The hell, we've got a stage invader." Then I broke the award.
You got tackled on the way.
Oh dear!
And then everyone, everyone recognised me afterwards. Oh, how's the award? Yeah, it's me. It's fine. Don't worry.
Do you have to like tape it back together or something, or what happened?
No, I'm making it more dramatic than it is. It's like a ski that went into a block at the bottom, so you just stuck it back in.
Oh, it's funny.
It's more makes more drama. So
congrats on the award, though. That was pretty cool. You won tell the audience what award you won.
We won Snowflake Partner of the Year, SI Partner of the Year for EMEA, and we won ThoughtSpot Emerging Partner of the Year. But yeah, it was epic, and I may say it, and people laugh. We were humble for the size of the organisation we are, and how long we've been going to go. We didn't even sponsor the events. Neither events we sponsored. We didn't have money to sponsor the events. We only had one good, our first really good year, and we've invested that into the company. So, to go to those and everyone else that's winning these awards to be the Tableaus, the GSI partners, and these big players, and then to go up and wee little me, from the data streets, jumping up from the wrong place, But it just shows that the awards are gained by not just sponsoring it. So, but next year we're going to sponsor it to see if we win.
That's a good control group, I guess. So assuming everything else is the same. That's interesting. Well, congrats on the awards. It's really cool, and it goes to show audience. If Chris can do it, anyone can do it. So
exactly.
Believe in yourself. Chase your dreams.
Here supporting
you. Exactly. I even surprise myself every day. So but well done your book, guys. It's been a massive success, and you deserve all of it.
It's kind of crazy, if you haven't picked this up yet, go get it. Fundamentals of Data Engineering. I don't know Riley, but the cool thing was, even at the happy hour in New York, I was shocked at the number of people who were either reading the book or knew about it or knew about me through the podcast and whatever else. It was insane, actually, and so I spent a lot of time. It was an impromptu book signing. I wasn't expecting it. In fact, I had given away most of my books. So I wasn't expecting it to be a book party, but it turned out to be one. So
you'll be pleased to know. So I've got I'll give a shout out. Nathan Page works for us. So he's one of our first grads that's made his way up, and so he's a go-to person for me. And he's been building up a library of things to learn. That anyone that's looking to move into it, we test the water. So have a look at this if you're interested. The number one thing on there is download your book, buy your book, and then after that, and he said because Chris it'll make Chris happy as well. I didn't know because I got CC'd in the reply. I went, he's even put that on there now as well. Thank you.
That's awesome.
It's out there. It is a point of reference that I think everyone should look out there before they start questioning modern data stacks dead. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, or if you just want to learn data engineering, we're seeing a lot of data teams use it, so I think that's really cool. If you're and in fact, shout out, if you are working at a company and you feel like your team needs to level up its data engineering skills, read our book. It's a good resource, and I think it helps level set knowledge and competencies, and and hit Matt and I for corporate trainings if you want some more hands-on training as well. So. Shameless plug, but it's our show, so we'll shamelessly plug what we do.
Say whatever we want. Until we get kicked off of LinkedIn or something.
And they say self-praise is no praise, so I'm going to praise them as well. Yeah, the best in the world, and I've been traveling a while, and I haven't found any better yet. So I only gate crash their shows. That's it. No one else's.
That's awesome. Well, cool, man. We're coming up on the top of the hour. Chris, it's always great to chat with you. Thanks to the audience. We weren't expecting to having one show up actually because it was very impromptu. Kind of give a quick mention last night on LinkedIn as it's flying back from New York. But this Friday we have Milan Ververka, I think is this how you spell his last name or say it. But yeah, he's wise. I don't know where he just sprung out from. If he's been kind of a slow burner for a while, but he's got some good stuff.
I spoke to him literally before this call. I was on a call with him. So he is a wise man. We joke around that we're still trying to find something to argue on. So we're still looking. I will be tuned in on Friday because he has a lot of good stuff to say, and he always seems to be agreeing with it. So it's a challenge. I can't put any smarmy comments on it. It's terrible.
It's an echo chamber. You can it's awesome. There will be no Monday morning data chat next Monday because it's Labor Day.
Are we actually taking that day off? I guess we should decide.
Well, we are. Yeah. I mean, there's a good chance I'm going to be.
The rest of the world is still about, though. I mean, just so selfish. In fact, it's a holiday today, and I'm here. Just saying.
True. Well, maybe we will.
I know, you deserve a day off. In fact, have a day off. Spend time with your family.
It's an order. That sounds like an excellent idea.
Cool. Do it. All right, Chris. Talk to you soon, man. And,
take care, everyone. Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you.
Bye.